Hello students, this is the second video lecture of chapter 7 Acid, Bases and Salts, class 7th Science. Okay, so in this video lecture we will be discussing about starting with the properties of acids with physical and chemical, both properties. Before this, what are things we discussed? We discussed basic what is an acid, what are the basic properties, or how can you identify acid, types of acids. Okay, we looked into a brief introduction towards bases. Okay, so the thing I want to share today is the properties of acid. Okay, so here we start with physical properties of acids. So basically, we looked into brief introduction regarding acids in the first video lecture. So the same thing, almost same things are there in physical properties of acid. Like we discussed that, acids have sour taste. So, we have already discussed that the term acid is derived from the word acidus. That means sour. Okay. We also discussed about, certain acids which are strong and certain acids which are weak acids. Okay, that is basically types of acids, concentrated or diluted on the basis of amount present in water, and if on the basis of strength of acid can be strong or weak. Strong acids are also referred as mineral acids. What are the examples of mineral acids? So there were hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid and carbonic acid. Okay, so yes, we moved on to the physical properties. First, we discussed that they have sour taste, and we know that we cannot taste strong acids. So we also discussed about acid base indicators, that tasting every substance to check it out whether it is sour or not. If it is sour, then it would be acid. This is not the thing. This is not, it can be dangerous, and it can be it can be turned into madness, that how can we taste every substance. Okay, we can restrict ourselves to certain food items we can taste and we can check it out. So we did the activity regarding this also. So the basic thing is the application of acid base indicators. Okay, we moved on to next physical property, turns blue litmus red. So litmus paper is one of the acid base indicators, as we have discussed. Is a natural indicator and is obtained from litmus. Okay, so we already know that in neutral it is in purple color, in acidic it is in red color, and in basic solutions it gives blue color. So I defined just now the colors of litmus paper in different solutions, that is in acidic, basic and neutral medium. I hope I am not going fast enough, as we have discussed already this in first video lecture. Okay, so I would be do not keeping a pace in my speaking, but moving down to next. Acidic solutions conduct electricity. This is the physical property that we should discuss. Okay, these two we have already covered. Now is the property. This is also very important, that acidic solutions are responsible for conducting electricity. Okay, so to conduct electricity, we require some ions. As in case, let us first discuss a few example. I would take an example to explain you, the few examples. Like suppose if I say, transfer of heat. So if you are able to recall, we studied different modes of transfer of heat, like convection, and radiation, if you are able to recall. Okay, so we studied this with the help of example, flow of heat and its effect. Okay, heat and its effect, flow of heat, 2 chapters regarding heat. Yes. So That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying if I talk about, transfer of heat, it involves, three different ways how the heat can transfer. Either it can transfer molecule to basically transfer of energy takes place from molecule to molecule. But here the medium changes. Conduction usually involves in solids. Okay. Convection usually, I am saying usually, okay. Mark my words. Convection usually in liquids as well as sometimes in gases, and radiation basically in gases. Or else, we cannot distinguish on the basis of medium, but we can distinguish on the basis of, one example, like, if you want to pass a book to your friend, either you can pass, to the student sitting next to you, that student would be passing to another student, and ultimately to your friend. So from student to student, student to student, the book was passed. Now imagine this book as heat. Okay, do not worry, I am not starting the chapter of heat, but to make you understand the basic concept, like you want to transfer the heat from you to your friend, you are passing with the help of the student sitting between you and your friend. Okay, similarly if I talk about convection and radiations, these are another two methods, like the way you are throwing the book to your friend. This is one way. Or either you stand up, you move by your own and give the book to your friend. So there are different methods in the form of different ways by which you can transfer the energy to you, I mean from you to your friend. Similarly, in case if I talk about sound, sound also is a form of energy. Regarding this you would be studying in detail in class 8th. There is one chapter known as chapter 13, sound. So that is also discussing about the thing that just like as heat is a form of energy, sound is also a form of energy. Okay, sound also transfers from molecule to molecule. Just now, the source of audio capturing, when I am speaking, who is listening? Right now you are not listening to me, but right now while I am making the video, there is one mobile phone which is capturing my voice. So how it is responsible for capturing my voice, since the mobile phone is some around 30 centimeters away from me, or else more than that. Let us not take the consideration of distance, but it is lump sum distance away from me. So if I am speaking, how does it able to capture? It is because of the air molecules present between me and the microphone or the mobile phone. Okay, so the air molecules, the form of the energy, when I speak, the energy radiates all around, and this energy is transferred from molecule to molecule. The molecules of what? The molecules of air. Similarly, in case if I talk about electricity, electricity also requires a medium. Okay, so acidic solution is also a medium. Suppose this is water and this water is containing acid. Let us take the example of acid HCl. Okay, so HCl has two ions, H plus Cl minus, H plus Cl minus. These are the ions. Ions are responsible for conduction of electricity. ठीक है, तो ये H plus Cl minus. Now these are not only the ions, water भी है H plus, ठीक है, water का H plus, O minus, oxygen, O minus, oxygen. So these are the ions, okay, which are responsible. ये ions है, ठीक है, ये ions है which are responsible for conducting electricity. Similarly, in case if we talk about tap water easily conducts electricity. But in case if I take distilled water, yani water which does not contain any mineral, any impurity, any microorganism, it is purely a distilled water. So if I ask this distilled water to conduct electricity, it won't be able to, although it contains hydrogen and oxygen, but it won't be able to conduct. So for conducting electricity, we need some kind of impurity. Okay, so when I add HCl or any acid to the water, since acid is soluble in water, it is able to conduct electricity. Similarly, tap water, as it contains chlorine, calcium, magnesium and न जाने कितने minerals. Okay, apart from this there are several microorganisms, okay, like bacteria, viruses, you know, we do not know, but they are harmful and there are harmless, and there are, you know, beneficial microorganisms also present in the water. So this and since if I am talking about tap water, it would be containing some impurities too. So these impurities are removed by your aquaguard, but in case if I talk about tap water, it can easily, you know, conduct electricity because it also contains some salts, okay, in the form of minerals. The thing I want to say here is why acidic solution is able to conduct electricity, because when I add acid to the water, it dissociates. Suppose I added acid as HCl, but as soon as HCl dissolves in water, it converts into H plus Cl minus, and these atoms, or you know, the molecules or the ions, okay, that means atom having charge is known as ion, atom having charge is known as ion, and this ion is responsible for conducting electricity. So remember, acidic solutions are responsible, or you can say are the good conductor of electricity. Okay, we move down to next physical property, that is acids are corrosive in nature. Okay, as we know, yes, we all are aware that acids, in, you know, according to their strength, are harmful to our body parts and, you know, to the things. Like suppose if I spill some mineral acids on cloth, paper, wood, or you know, we can say something else like metals. So acids are responsible for corroding metals also. Some strong acids, like for example, we can take HCl, H2SO4. Okay, so these acids, nitric acids, are responsible for, you know, one left na carbonic. Okay, let us move down to the mineral acids. 4 mineral acids we discussed: hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid and carbonic acid. So these acids are very corrosive in nature. That means they destroy the substance when they come in contact to those substances, rather than it can be skin. So mineral acids cause skin burns, but which mineral acids? Hydrochloric, sulfuric and nitric acid, not the carbonic acid. Carbonic acid is not responsible for skin burns, but the rest 3 acids apart from carbonic acid are responsible for skin burns. Okay, so since acids are corrosive in nature, okay, so acids paper को भी destroy कर सकता है, cloth, wood, etc. Metals too are destroyed by acids. They are so corrosive in nature. So if I want to store acids, in which container, you know, the containers, you know, what material should be made of, so that I can store that acid in the particular container, and that material is made up of glass. Okay, so stored in glass containers. Acids are stored in glass containers because acid, you know, mostly are not able to corrode glasses. Okay, but they are able to corrode metals, they are able to corrode cloth, paper, wood and skin too. Okay, moving down to next, cause burns on skin. Which acids? Mineral acids. When I say, okay, this is basically and specifically for mineral acid. Okay, for mineral acids. You know, skin burns are caused by mineral acids and not by organic or the weak acids. Okay, so what are the organic acids we discussed in the first video lecture? I hope you are able to recall. Those are the ones which are derived from living things such as plants and animals. Okay, we move down to next. If I ask you, okay, whether you know organic acids are responsible for causing skin burns, just now I said that since mineral acids are specifically responsible for causing skin burns, that means what? Organic acids are not responsible. They are, you know, weak acids, so they are not responsible for skin burns. Okay, so these were the, you know, 4 physical properties. The last one is the acid soluble in water. So as I discussed, since acidic solutions are conducting electricity, why? Because acid is soluble in water, and when I take the acid solution, okay, and try to pass the electric current, acid solution will be acting as a good conductor for conducting electricity. So these are the 5 physical properties of acids. First, have sour taste. Second, turns blue litmus paper red. That means it is talking about indicator. Next is acidic solutions conduct electricity. Acids are soluble in water and they are corrosive in nature. So I hope physical properties are easy and there is nothing much to make aware about. But here, yes, there are some star questions asked here, like acids are stored in which containers. If I store in metal containers, what would happen, or why we should not store acids in metal containers. So as the reason I have already discussed, since acids have corrosive nature, they are also corroding metals. So if we store acids in metal containers, what happens? The acid would react with metal and would form something, and that we would be studying in chemical properties of acid. Let us start one by one the chemical properties of acids. First is reaction with metals. Whose reaction? Acid's reaction. So acid when reacts with metal, what happens? Okay, so when if I am storing some substance, I want to make that substance remain in that state only. What did I say? If I want to store some substance, I want that substance remain in that state only, है ना. मैं चाहती नहीं कि कुछ और हो जाए, मैं 5 दिन के बाद आऊँ तो मैंने जो एसिड स्टोर किया था वो अब सॉल्ट बन गया. मुझे ऐसा नहीं चाहिए. मुझे जो स्टोर करना है that I want only. Okay, the thing is, if I ask you to when acid reacts with metal, what happens? This is also the reason why we are not using metal containers to store acid. So see here, reaction with metals. So when metal, we can generalize this reaction like this. When metal reacts with acid, acid contains hydrogen. Acid contains hydrogen. If you see, hydrochloric acid HCl, sulfuric acid H2SO4, nitric acid HNO3, carbonic acid H2CO3. You see, all acids contains hydrogen. So acid के अंदर जो hydrogen होता है, that is I am representing here HA. A for acid, H for the hydrogen present in the acid. So when acid reacts with metal, ये metal क्या करेगा? Hydrogen को बोलेगा अब तू निकल जा, मुझे acid के साथ रहने दे. So when metal combines with acid, it forms a metal salt. When metal combines with acid and removes hydrogen, the hydrogen is removed in the form of hydrogen gas. So imagine if you want to store acid in a metal container, the metal would be reacting with acid and it would be pushing the hydrogen out. That means it would be replacing hydrogen with itself. यानी मेटल बोलेगा अब तू हट जा, मैं तेरे जगह आता हूँ. So metal then reacts with acid to form metal salt, and hydrogen is released as a form of hydrogen gas. So if you would be storing acid in metal container, after few time, it would take a long time, but yes, there would be contamination, there would be reaction taking place, very slow, but would be taking place. Okay, so the thing is, what I want to say is, when you be storing the acid in metal container, after few days and a few months, when you observe the acid you won't be getting any acid, but you would be getting the metal salt of the container. Okay, the container from which the from which metal it is made up of, you would be getting the salt of that metal instead of the acid which you stored in that metal container. So this is how we are preventing to store acids in the metal containers. So some examples are given, like when metal reacts with acid, it forms metal salt and hydrogen gases evolve. When you write a reaction, you always make a habit of writing the full name below the symbol of the given element or molecule. So magnesium, this is the metal magnesium. When metal magnesium reacts with hydrochloric acid, when metal magnesium reacts with hydrochloric acid, it forms magnesium chloride, and this magnesium chloride is a salt. Magnesium chloride is a salt. So magnesium chloride plus hydrogen gas. Magnesium chloride plus hydrogen gas is evolved. Okay. Next example is given when metal zinc reacts with sulfuric acid. It doesn't mean if I say acid there has to be hydrochloric acid always. There might be sulfuric acid. So when zinc reacts with sulfuric acid, it forms zinc sulfate, ZnSO4, and along with it hydrogen gas is evolved. So if you observe carefully both the reaction, what happens is the metal is able to replace hydrogen, वो हाइड्रोजन को निकाल देता है और मैग्नीशियम खुद कंबाइन हो जाता है क्लोरीन के साथ. Similarly, zinc removes hydrogen and itself combines with sulfate, forming ZnSO4. So this happens, this is the reaction how acid reacts with metal. Now which metals have the ability to replace hydrogen in the acid? किसके पास कैपेबिलिटी, किसके पास, कौन से मेटल के पास ऐसी क्षमता है कि भाई ये एसिड के अंदर जो हाइड्रोजन है उसे वो निकाल दे और खुद वो उस एसिड के साथ जुड़कर सॉल्ट बना दे. तो ऐसे कौन से मेटल्स हैं? दे आर नोन एज मोर रिएक्टिव मेटल्स. क्यों मैं मोर कंपैरेटिव वो टर्म यूज कर रही हूँ? क्योंकि देयर आर सम लेस रिएक्टिव मेटल्स व्हिच आर नॉट एबल टू रिएक्ट विद एसिड. The ones which are able to react with acids, those metals are sodium, potassium, calcium, iron, lead, aluminium. So try to recall these names of the metals, and there are some less reactive metals which are not able to react with acid and form salts. Okay, so these are copper, silver, gold. So copper, silver, gold, if you remember these three only, that is more than enough. So apart from these three, if any metal is provided, you can say that that metal can react with acid to form salt, and along with formation of salt, hydrogen gas is evolved. So remember, more reactive salts are sodium, potassium, calcium, iron, okay, lead and aluminium. So you have to remember this: sodium, potassium, calcium, iron, aluminium, lead are the reactive metals which reacts with acid to form salt, okay, that metal salt, along with hydrogen gases evolved. But in case if I try to make copper, silver, gold, anyone react with acid, okay, any of the acid, either it be HCl or H2SO4, it won't be reacting, okay, the reaction won't take place. So this was one of the chemical properties of acid. What is the another chemical property? Is reaction with carbonates. First was reaction with metals. Second is reaction with carbonates. For example, specifically metal carbonates. So when metal carbonates react with acid, they form salt plus carbon dioxide plus water is released. Here, when acids react with metal replaces the hydrogen present in acid, results in the formation of salt and hydrogen gas. Here, when metal carbonate reacts with acid, they form salt, along with it carbon dioxide gas is released and water is formed. Okay, so example is given calcium carbonate. Okay, always have the habit to write name of the compound, symbol, anything given, okay, just below the reaction. So calcium carbonate when reacts with hydrochloric acid, so calcium carbonate reacts with hydrochloric acid to form calcium chloride, Now if you observe carefully, calcium chloride is a salt, water and carbon dioxide. So when metal carbonate, for example, calcium carbonate reacts with acid, suppose hydrochloric acid, what happens is, if you see carefully, this calcium again replaces hydrogen और वो क्लोरीन के साथ आ जाता है. हाइड्रोजन जो निकलता है उसमें से हाइड्रोजन इसमें से एक ऑक्सीजन लेता है, और अगर ये एक ऑक्सीजन निकाल देगा तो 3 में से 1 निकला, 2 CO2 कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. समझ आ रहा है? सिमिलरली इफ वी टेक अनदर एग्जांपल, सोडियम कार्बोनेट. So sodium carbonate reacts with sulfuric acid. So here if you observe carefully, what happens कि भाई सोडियम जो है वो ये हाइड्रोजन को निकाल देता है. सोडियम कुछ सल्फेट के साथ जुड़ के क्या बनाता है? सोडियम सल्फेट. सोडियम सल्फेट विच इज अगेन सॉल्ट. ये हाइड्रोजन जो निकला कार्बोनेट में से एक ऑक्सीजन लेके वाटर बना देगा. क्योंकि कार्बोनेट में से एक ऑक्सीजन निकल गया तो क्या बचा? CO2, दैट इज कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. So when metal carbonate reacts with acid, it forms salt, carbon dioxide and water. Okay, now this reaction is used to prepare carbon dioxide in laboratory. Okay, this reaction, this particular reaction is used to prepare carbon dioxide in laboratory. Okay, so if next time if you want to make carbon dioxide, what you would be doing? You would be taking some metal carbonate. Which metal carbonate? Sodium carbonate. Make it react with sulfuric acid. You would be adding sodium sulfate plus water plus carbon dioxide, which is the main product you want. Okay, so for synthesizing carbon dioxide or for forming carbon dioxide in laboratory, you would be using this reaction. Okay, next is reaction with bases. We started with chemical properties of acids. In that first we discussed with reactions with metals. So when metal react with acids, it forms what? It forms metal salt plus hydrogen gas. When reaction with carbonate. So when acids reacts with metal carbonate, it forms salt, carbon dioxide and water. Now in case if acids reacts with bases, what happens? This is the simple reaction. These reactions are sometimes known as neutralization reaction. Why? Because we have already discussed this. Acids and base are able to neutralize each other's chemical properties. Are you able to recall? We have already discussed in first video lecture that acids are able to cancel the chemical properties of bases, and in return bases also nullify the strength and properties of acid, ultimately leads to the formation of salt and water. So when acid reacts with base, it forms salt along with water. So what thing I want to discuss here is, there is one activity given in your textbook, say activity 4, in which you have been taking a test tube. In test tube you are adding, if not test tube, there might be some another container like beaker, flask, and do not exactly remember, but some container. Let us take here for example test tube. In test tube, if I add NaOH, what is NaOH? Hydroxide. Metal hydroxides, oxides are the examples of bases. Yes, obviously. So if I add sodium hydroxide in a test tube, that means I am adding one of the base in the test tube. Now I am adding to it. When I added, this is sodium hydroxide. Okay. So when I added, firstly I added sodium hydroxide. Then to it I added methyl orange. Few drops of methyl orange. Okay. Few drops of methyl orange. Are you able to recall what is methyl orange? Yes, absolutely, you are guessing correct. Methyl orange is an example of acid base indicator. Okay, so what do you think? When I add methyl orange to a base, what color does this acid base container provide? I asked you, when I add methyl orange to the base, that is sodium hydroxide, what color do this methyl orange be giving to this solution? So you would be getting a yellow solution. Yellow solution, that means methyl orange gives yellow color to basic solution. Okay. If we get the yellow colored solution, now you try to add. Next you would be adding what? You would be adding an acid, suppose HCl. Okay, drop by drop. You added first, it becomes something, some darkens, yellow color darks, darkens yellow color. Then you would be, adding more HCl, drop by drop. And one stage would be reached when you would be, seeing or observing that this yellow colored solution intensifies, the yellow color intensifies and ultimately turns into pink color. Now, this is the time you have to stop adding the HCl. Why? Because this shows that all the NaOH has been neutralized. Okay, तो NaOH जो है, अगर तुमने NaOH के साथ मिथाइल ऑरेंज डाला तो तुम्हें येलो कलर मिला. येलो कलर क्यों मिला? क्योंकि मिथाइल ऑरेंज बेस के साथ येलो कलर देता है. जब मैंने HCl डाला, when I added acid, what happens? कि धीरे धीरे एसिड जो है वो बेस के साथ रिएक्ट करने लगा. ठीक है, तो तुम देखना मिथाइल ऑरेंज जो है वो न्यूट्रल में भी येलो कलर देता है. तो एसिड जब बेस के साथ रिएक्ट करेगा, तो मुझे सॉल्ट दे रहा था, ठीक है, तो तुमने एक ड्रॉप HCl का डाला तो थोड़ा सा जो HCl है वो थोड़ा सा NaOH के साथ रिएक्ट करके सॉल्ट बना रहा था. अब एक टाइम आएगा कि सॉल्यूशन में सारा HCl ने सारे बेस के साथ रिएक्ट कर लिया और सॉल्ट बना लिया. फिर भी तुमने एक एक्स्ट्रा ड्रॉप डाला HCl का, तो क्या हुआ कि अब सॉल्यूशन में क्योंकि कोई बेस नहीं था तो HCl बेचारा अकेला हो गया. जब तुमने स्टार्टिंग में ऐड करना शुरू किया तब अंदर बेस था, तो जैसे ही HCl अंदर जाता था, बेस था, वो उसके साथ रिएक्ट करता था, सॉल्ट बनाता था. तुमने दूसरा ड्रॉप HCl का डाला, अभी भी सॉल्यूशन में कुछ ऐसे बेस थे जो अनरिएक्टेड थे, तो वो उन बेस के साथ रिएक्ट करके सॉल्ट बनाता था. एसिड डाला, बेस के साथ रिएक्ट किया, सॉल्ट बनाया, ऐसे करता चलता रहा. बट एट टाइम व्हेन यू एडेड अनदर लास्ट ड्रॉप ऑफ HCl, व्हाट हैपेंड? You see the color from yellow changes to pink. That indicates कि अब क्या है कि HCl जब आया तो उसको कोई बेस मिला ही नहीं. उसे लगा बेस होगा लेकिन कोई बेस था नहीं, तो HCl अकेला रह गया. अब जो था मिथाइल ऑरेंज आया. मिथाइल ऑरेंज ने बोला भाई मैं तो एसिडिक सॉल्यूशन में कौन सा कलर देता हूँ? रेड कलर. तो एक्चुअली पूरा रेड कलर नहीं मिलेगा, पिंक कलर मिलेगा. मतलब क्या कि थोड़ा सा एसिडिक सोल्यूशन है. क्यों? क्योंकि तुमने एक एक्स्ट्रा ड्रॉप HCl का डाला. अब अगर और ज्यादा डालोगे तो सोल्यूशन क्या हो जाएगा? रेड. हमें वो नहीं चाहिए, हमें क्या चाहिए? सॉल्ट चाहिए, जो हमें मिल गया. तो ये कहने का मतलब है कि व्हेन यू वुड बी एडिंग एसिड टू बेस or base to acid, whatever, when you would be make react this acid with base, you would be getting salt along with water. So here the example is given: hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid reacts with sodium hydroxide. Reacts with sodium hydroxide to form sodium chloride, and sodium chloride is nothing but salt. Sodium chloride along with water. I hope you understood the activity 4, which says the same thing as I explained with the methyl orange. There is another example. You can perform the same activity with this. Only replace the base from NaOH to KOH and replace the acid from HCl to H2SO4. Rest remains same. Procedure same रहेगा, सिर्फ अलग सा बेस ले लो, अलग सा एसिड ले लो. बेस इज पोटेशियम हाइड्रोक्साइड. Potassium hydroxide. Potassium hydroxide when reacts with sulfuric acid, it forms potassium sulfate, and potassium sulfate is also an example of salt. Remember कि ऐसा नहीं सोडियम क्लोराइड ही सॉल्ट होता है. No, ये तो आपको किचन में मिलती है वो सॉल्ट है. But apart from this, there are many salts like potassium sulfate, okay, sodium sulfate, calcium chloride. Okay, so we would be studying in the last topic of this chapter, which says salts, how they are prepared, what are the types of salts, how we can provide names to the different salts, what are their uses. We will be studying in detail shortly. Move on to next. Along with potassium sulfate, it releases water. Okay, so when salt formation takes place along with release of water, there is some release of heat also. So when you write this equation, you also add plus heat. So when acid reacts with base, obviously it forms salt, it releases water, but along with it, it also releases heat. Okay, so this were the chemical properties of acids. Okay, physical properties. 5 physical properties: have sour taste, turns blue litmus paper red, able to conduct electricity, they are soluble in water, and they are corrosive in nature. Since they are corrosive in nature, we cannot store acids in metal containers. Instead, we would be storing them in glass containers. We also discussed about chemical properties, where how acids reacts with metal and therefore resist us to store these acids into metal containers. Okay, so how the reaction takes place? When acid reacts with metal, it forms salt along with hydrogen gas. Along with hydrogen gas, which is evolved along with the evolution of hydrogen gas. Okay, so when metals reacts with acid, it forms salt along with the evolution of hydrogen gas. Now, which metals are responsible for reacting with acids? Not all metals are responsible for reacting with acids. Certain reactive metals are sodium, potassium, calcium, iron, aluminium, lead. Okay, try to remember. Otherwise, you should remember the ones which are not able to react with acids. The names of those metals are copper, silver and gold. So copper, silver and gold are less reactive, while sodium, potassium, calcium, iron, lead, aluminium are more reactive towards acids. Next chemical property, reactions with carbonates. So when basically metal carbonates. So when metal carbonates reacts with acid, they form salt plus carbon dioxide plus water. So we looked into few examples like that of calcium carbonate, sodium carbonate, and we look into the reaction which says that when sodium carbonate reacts with sulfuric acid, it forms sodium sulfate, salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. So if you want to prepare carbon dioxide in laboratory, okay, you would be using this reaction, you would be using this procedure, that is reaction of sodium carbonate with sulfuric acid. Third chemical property of acid is reaction of acid with bases, and that is also known as neutralization reaction, because acid and base both neutralize each other's chemical properties. So when acid reacts with base, it results in the formation of salt plus water along with evolution of heat. Okay, so we look into few examples, and we also understood that sodium chloride is not only the salt. Okay, there are different salts like potassium chloride, calcium chloride, potassium sulfate, sodium sulfate, etc. Many salts are there, naming of which we would be studying in the upcoming topics. Okay, so for this lecture, it's done with this. In the next lecture, we would be starting with uses of acids. Okay, or let us check this out, uses of acids, so that in the next lecture we would be starting with types of bases. So wait for a minute, hold for few more minutes. Let us look some uses of acids, which is more theoretical, but then too also I would like to explain. I was previously thinking to skip, but if you are able to grasp, let us continue with uses of acids. So acids, there is not something to discuss in this, but there are certain new things that you should know and you should understand, and you have to recall, remember this and recall the uses of different acids. Like if we start with hydrochloric acid. So it is used in oil industry to dissolve oil bearing rocks. That means the rocks which are bearing oil present inside the rock. तो अब वो rock में से oil को निकालना है. So we would be pouring the acid so that the rock dissolves, the rock melts, and the oil present inside the rocks comes out. So there is some procedure so that acid does not get dissolved with oil. You might be thinking कि भाई acid डाल दिया rock पे, तो acid might dissolve with oil. But as you know, there might be some measures taken. There might be some techniques used in this oil industry to make separate acid from oil which is present inside rocks. So you can just now you can remember that to dissolve oil bearing rocks, hydrochloric acids are used. Apart from this, manufacture chemicals such as glue. So for making glue also hydrochloric acid is used. Purifying salts, and there are certain procedures used to purify salts. Okay, since salts are also derived from certain rocks containing salts are also there. So to separate the salts from impurities, hydrochloric acid is used. Apart from this, descaling means the scales present in boilers. Now what do we understand by boilers? Boilers are huge containers where the boiling of water in large amount takes place, basically in industries. So in boiling tanks there are formation of scales of water. Sometimes you have observed, मान लो कि पानी का ऐसा दाग रह जाता है, पानी सूख जाता है, but there is some ring form. Suppose तुमने एक container लिया, any container containing water, and you put it on the flame. ठीक है, इतनी देर रखो कि वो पूरा water evaporate हो जाए. जब water पूरा evaporate हो जाएगा, so you would be finding some water marks, कुछ ऐसा white color का mark होगा. That is known as scales. तो वो scales जो है वो boilers में हो जाती हैं. तो वो boilers में से scales को निकालना, that is descaling, and this is done with the help of hydrochloric acid. Apart from this, it is also used in making aqua regia, which contains 3 parts of HCl and 1 part of HNO3. So when I take this HCl and HNO3 in this ratio, that is 3:1 वाले रेशियो में मैं HCl और नाइट्रिक एसिड को मिक्स करती हूँ, तो I form aqua regia. और ये aqua regia कहाँ यूज होता है? To dissolve metals such as, ये क्या होगा? Gold. ये क्या है? Platinum. So noble metals मतलब क्या? वो ज्यादातर किसी के साथ रिएक्ट करते नहीं है. So गोल्ड और प्लेटिनम रिएक्ट नहीं करते, इसलिए देखो हमारी जो ज्वेलरी है वो आराम से पहन के बाहर निकलते हैं. But if you know, there are some fake jewelries also available. Okay, and there are some different तुमने नोटिस किया होगा कि there are other metal jewelries which start corroding after some time and depending on the usage. But gold and platinum do not, because they are noble metals. They won't be reacting. But to dissolve this metal, hydrochloric acid is used. Okay. Next is sulfuric acid. Sulfuric acid is used in manufacture of ammonium sulfate. See, sulfate. Sulfate is derived from sulfuric acid. So fertilizers such as ammonium sulfate or superphosphate is used. Is using sulfuric acid is one of the component. In automobile batteries, okay, the batteries present in automobiles are also using sulfuric acid. Apart from this, manufacturing detergents, manufacturing drugs, plastics, paints, or manufacturing chemicals such as copper sulfate and Epsom salts. Many chemicals, drugs, paints, or plastics, detergents, automobile batteries, their manufacture requires sulfuric acid. Apart from this, in textile industries like paper industry, textile industry, that means cotton or cloth industry. So these industries also uses sulfuric acid. Now next is nitric acid. Is used in manufacture of fertilizers such as ammonium nitrate. It is used as explosives such as TNT, trinitrotoluene. This is written as you know, these T, N and T, they are not in uppercase. For you to refer this with this, you know, for you to compare this, I have written in uppercase. Otherwise, it is written like this: trinitrotoluene. It is a very, you know, explosive thing, and this is, you know, made with the help of nitric acid. Apart from this, nitroglycerins are also made from nitric acid. Preparing aqua regia, as we discussed, aqua regia contains 3 parts of HCl. So HCl is also required in preparing aqua regia. Along with this, we require nitric acid. Next is extract some metals from ores. ठीक है, so metals हमें direct नहीं मिलते. We have to, you know, dig the earth out, and you know, we have to extract the metals. So from, you know, separating the ores, we have already discussed in, no, you would be discussing, I'm so sorry, class 8th. There is a chapter known as metals and non-metals, where you would be discussing about ores. So ores is nothing but, you know, in simple terms, it is impurities plus metal. It is impurities plus metal. So to separate the metal from these impurities, we have to use nitric acid. Apart from this, purify precious metals. So in purification of precious metals such as gold and silver, so there also we use nitric acid. So yes, now it's end, you know, for today's lecture. This much only. In the next lecture, we would be starting with bases. Again, types of bases, their properties, physical and chemical, their uses. Then we would be moving to salts and so on. Okay. So for today, this much only.